All right, welcome to the Justin Spurlock Show. This is the first episode of a new podcast that I've been trying to do, trying to get going. And the focus of this podcast is going to be on different community issues. I guess you could say political issues, but more or less just issues within our community that I find interesting, that I want to know more about. And I'm hoping to bring in some different guests and just sort of learn some new information. One of the things that right now I feel like is sort of a hot button issue, something that people are really talking a lot about, is internet in our county. And I think a couple of years ago when the pandemic started, we realized that internet was really important for a lot of reasons. And we realized there were a lot of people in this county that didn't have the internet. And I think people have been trying to come up with different solutions about how we can service these people who live in the more rural areas of our county. And in kind of learning some more about that, I've met a few different people who have some different opinions. And I just wanted to invite some guests on to talk about this whole internet project that we have going on. For those of you that don't know, the Dixon Electric Department is attempting to, bring internet to Dixon County. It's a big project that's going on, and I don't know everything about it. My goal is just really to talk to some people that do know more about it and kind of see what they know and what their opinions are. And I'm lucky today. I do have a guest here in the studio with me. His name is Dakota.
Hey there.
And it's very nice to have you in the studio. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's great to be here. I look forward to talking about this with you. It's a hot button issue, as you said, and there's a lot to unpack here. So I appreciate your invitation and look forward to chatting with you.
So I'll just be honest with the people. I didn't really know you before about a week ago. We had kind of run into each other through the internet world, I guess you could say, through social media. I do record or broadcast a couple of radio shows on Saturday mornings for WDKN, which is the local radio station.
You were very easy to find, Justin.
And I think that's kind of how you found me.
Absolutely.
And we started talking and realized that you know a lot about this stuff and you do have an opinion about it. And you work for a company. I'll let you talk more about that, but
Sure.
That is involved in this whole process. And so I wanted to bring you on and just ask you some questions. We've talked a little bit, and so I've kind of got an idea of who you are and kind of what you know, but wanted to record it and give the people of Dixon an opportunity to hear from you what I've heard from you. And so I'm excited that you're here. Let's just start off the top. Tell me a little bit about who you are, who you work for.
For sure.
And kind of, how'd you get involved in all this internet Dixon stuff?
Absolutely. Well, so my name's Dakota Gordon, and I consider myself to be a three-quarter native of Middle Tennessee. I went to Blackman High School and then graduated from Middle Tennessee State University, but wasn't lucky enough to be born here. So I'm three-quarter Tennessean and one-quarter Okie is what I say. My family lives out in Oklahoma. But specifically, my background and what's kind of led me here has been I've worked in advocacy my whole career, and it's been for causes that I've felt important and were important and have been real easy to get behind, and I've been very blessed to not have to fake it in that way. I've been real lucky. I've worked with some folks like the NRA up in Montana. I was very blessed to work on some stuff here in Tennessee as well. I've worked on a few campaigns. One of them being Senator Haggerty's. I was with him for a time as well, and now I'm very lucky to have fallen. I have my full time and my day job and my main focus is victims' rights advocacy. But this project specifically called Better Tomorrow in Tennessee. It's a 501c4 nonprofit. Nonpartisan advocacy group, and this is kind of my pet project on the side, and kind of where I'm focusing my energies supplementally to try and not only bring light to this issue, but to kind of make sure that the people who look and feel like the people that from my hometown community have access to the things that I know that they need to be successful, to have prosperity, and to live full lives, and specifically that being broadband access to rural internet. Like I said, I'm from Oklahoma and Tennessee, rural places in both, and so now what that led me to was the idea to put together kind of an advocacy group here, kind of on my own, to try and bring about awareness and combat government overreach while trying to at the same time help deliver great broadband to people in rural areas that don't have access to it. So that's what Better Tomorrow in Tennessee does. We're a 501c4 nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy group that's here to fight government overreach, while at the same time advocate for great quality, top quality broadband, and preferably, I'll be honest with you, that typically means through public-private partnership. We're not in favor of growing government, and I think that's what kind of led us to Dixon specifically, is because you guys are considering an expansion of your utilities board that would allow them to start providing broadband services throughout their district. So that's what we're here taking a look at, and I think that's what got me to your table today, Mr. Justin.
So thank you for coming. I know that a lot of people don't like to do recorded interviews, and I was skeptical about it at first, but I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's a good way to get the information out to people. Let's sort of break this down a little bit for people who are listening who really don't know what's going on. So I don't know a lot about this, okay? Which is but may make me the perfect person to ask the questions, because there's a lot of other people that also don't know a lot about this.
Sure.
So I'm going to kind of take it back and break it down from the beginning. So let's go back 30 years.
Okay.
The internet is brand new, okay?
Sure.
And it's not in everybody's home yet. But over the years, internet becomes more and more of a part of our lives. And now we're to the point where we're almost inseparable from it. We need it to do just about everything. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can even operate a business without the internet anymore. Whereas 30 years ago, it wasn't all that necessary to do pretty much anything you were trying to do. But over the last 30 years, we've seen internet, like I said, become a bigger part of our lives. And different places have had the opportunity to get high-speed internet, whereas other places have not. And that's sort of been the issue is, if you live in town, if you live right in the middle of things, you can get it. If you live out in the rural areas, you can't get it. And I don't think, for a long time it wasn't that big of a deal because, like I said before, it wasn't a huge part of our lives, but now it is. Sure. And so now we're seeing this big fight to get everybody internet access. I think we really noticed it during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. As a teacher, we started seeing that there were students who just... It's not that they couldn't afford the internet. They don't have the option. It's not coming out there. And so I think over the past couple of years, really since that happened, but maybe even a few years before that, there's really been a push to get internet to every home within this county and other counties all across the United States. But we've seen sort of a lag here. We haven't, we look around us and we see more rural counties who have better internet access than us, and it's caused some frustration.
Sure.
And I guess a couple of years ago there was some legislation passed to try to help out with this stuff, and we've really seen over the past little bit a push to, like I said, expand that. Now, the reason we're talking this morning is because the electric company here in Dixon County, the electric department, is trying to get involved in the internet business. Now, from your point of view, can you sort of explain to the listeners what they're trying to do? And I know you're not part of that, but just from an outsider's looking in, what are they trying to exactly do, the electric department?
Well, let me take it back a little bit further. So what my understanding and what our organization's understanding, and let me say this is very limited. I haven't had the opportunity to meet directly with Mayor Weiss yet, but I'm very excited to say that I do have a meeting with him coming up this Wednesday. So very grateful for him taking the opportunity to chat with us and to have an ideological discussion, because that's really what we do at Better Tomorrow in Tennessee is we discuss the ideological parameters of this type of expansion. So to get back to your question, the mayor, from what I understand, had approached the utilities board because all of this funding had become available, and because there had been other boards expanding, like you said, all around you guys, and the mayor asked for a presentation or a proposal that would allow Dixon Electric, or would at least articulate how they would go about expanding into the broadband industry. And from what I understand, that involves taking all of the maps of what's currently served, what's not currently served, figuring out how to put together an application, going through the process of that application, whether it be through the comptroller or through TVA or XYZ or the city council. And then put together that plan, what that would look like, and then deliver it and present it. And then the city council would then vote on how they would want to go about providing this broadband to the people of Dixon County or to the city of Dixon. It just depends. And so, that being very noble, of course, and they have not made their decision yet. Obviously, they have not yet voted on this. But so where that leaves us is, what about the people that are currently providing services, broadband services, within the county and within the city? How do they play into this? And the way that our organization, or what our organization is afraid of, is that instead of starting and focusing on unserved areas to begin providing service, or even having a conversation with providers at the table as well, to try and figure out how to collaboratively ensure that everyone is covered. What it looks like and kind of what it seems like is that the Dixon Electric is kind of organizing themselves to be not just someone that bridges the gap, but that directly competes in the broadband market and game here in Dixon County. And so our concern is that anytime government expands or grows, it's often at the expense of the individual or at the private sector. And the private sector is composed of individuals, specifically around here of your citizens. So our worry is that they're building out an operation to directly compete more than they would be building out one, or working collaboratively to build out one that might just bridge the gap. So that's our understanding of it. We have been trying to pay as much attention at this point as we can. We've got some great community members who are trying to focus on this alongside us. We've got some letters to the editor hopefully coming out next week from a few of our members that are advocating for a public-private partnership, or that are advocating for maybe a different option than just a direct expansion, or a needlessly direct expansion of government. So that's kind of our current evaluation of how things have gone and are going, and kind of the attention that we're trying to bring to it. And to touch on something that you had said earlier, just quickly, about how you had seen communities around you guys expanding and getting access to broadband, whether it be through public or private. Part of the reason that Dixon County hasn't had the luxury of having that is because when I mentioned that there are steps to there are steps required to complete this expansion, or to move forward with it, and one of those being the comptroller, one of them being TVA. TVA has actually rejected 2 of the proposals sent by Dixon Electric over the past 2 years. So that's part of the reason. If they had been able to put together a proposal that was comprehensive enough to be approved, then they would be much further along in this process, possibly even providing broadband already. So that is actually part of the reason that's not come to fruition there. So just wanted to touch on that before I forgot about it.
So people that are listening are probably thinking to themselves, why now? Like, why is this become so important now that it feels like everybody's trying to get involved? You got the private sector trying to get involved, you got the government trying to get involved, and I know there are a lot of people out there who probably think, well, I've wanted internet for a long time, and I've been ready for it for a long time. Why now? Is probably the question a lot of people are thinking. And my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but is after Joe Biden became president, that there was some new legislation passed which provided a lot of money to be spent on this particular project. And so that money is being funneled down from the federal government down to more local agencies. And so our government here locally is getting a lot of money to make this project happen. And am I correct in this assessment that this is kind of how this has all gotten started? Is that there's some money available now to sort of build it out?
Absolutely. I mean, the federal government, President Biden and the democratically controlled Congress made it very possible, allotted all of this money to the side, and it was part of the American Rescue Plan, to make access or to build out broadband services in rural areas. And that has trickled down to the states, and from the states to the counties, and at this point, much of it is at the discretion of those three levels of government. So different utilities boards are applying for different grants and to kind of put together their own unique application to try and provide their coverage. Of course, each region and each district and each board, it looks different. It's governed different, and their sizes and populations they even vary very greatly. So, yes, there is a lot of money out there, and what our organization is advocating for is for these municipalities, these boards, these utilities boards, these county governments as well, is that they take this money, that they sit down at the table with providers, with potentially their utilities boards, and with all the other stakeholders in government, up and down, and make a decision collaboratively as to how to go ahead and bridge this gap, instead of just creating these small time players in. And they're actually not small time, but if you add them all up, they're actually pretty big time. Instead of making these players in this broadband market the way that they're going to provide nothing but competition, and then unfortunately, in the most case, what that leads to is the people that were underserved are often the very last to receive services, and that's another thing to want to try and avoid here. And again, we're not accusing Dixon Electric of trying to do anything like this, but when government expands, if there's not a very sincere degree of oversight, it could potentially the end doesn't justify the mean at that point. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody is aware of what's happening, has an opportunity to have their say in what's happening, and as an organization, our stance on it does remain pro public-private partnership, and we do advocate against a direct expansion of government that's needless.
Sure.
So that's kind of where we're at, and what our current evaluation is, and what our current goal is, frankly. It's just awareness.
So, and I know that you don't work for Comcast.
Correct. I do not.
And we talked before, but I just kind of wonder what this private-public partnership would look like. Obviously, if it was just public, then that would be the electric department just kind of going out and doing its own thing, and they would, I guess, accept all of that money from the federal government, and they would use that to provide services. But I guess what you're sort of talking about is more of a public-private, so they would more or less be kind of teaming up with Comcast to sort of have Comcast kind of help them do that, or how would that sort of look? Because I have no idea.
Sure, and honestly, neither do we. It's not necessarily our job at Better Tomorrow in Tennessee to have the answer. What it is our job, though, to do is to advocate for small government and for transparency. And so what our understanding, or what it could look like, I guess, could be exactly what you just described. Bringing a provider to the table, looking at the maps, saying, okay, well, where is coverage? What do you plan to fill out? What can you plan to fill out as a provider? How, if there's any gray space left, how do we meet that need as a utility system? Who knows? There are 1,000 different ways it could go about, but our recommendation is that it not be kept totally in-house, and not just be an expansion that results in direct competition. So we would love to see what the providers are interested in trying to facilitate here, and I think the best way to go about that is to ensure communication between providers and your county and city governments, and making sure that they have the relationship that they would need to be able to collaborate effectively and see where they can solve problems. Because we do believe that problems are best solved by private answers, but when that's not an option, public-private to be the best alternative. So, for instance, a good place to even start with what it could look like. I know Comcast this past week went ahead and did a press release, and it got picked up by several different outlets, and it talks about how they're planning to provide services to nearly 5,200 currently unserved homes and businesses in Dixon County. They talk about how it would come from private investment from Comcast, along with state funding, along with funding from money, federal monies that was passed down from the bill that I just, let me look right here. I'm trying to make sure I have everything right, because I don't want to misquote these guys. They're pretty big deal. But yeah, it talks about how, and again, it's not necessarily our job at Better Tomorrow in Tennessee to go in point by point and to say, well, this is where the provider's not meeting a need, or this is where a utilities board could meet a need. It's our job to come in and ideologically advocate for small government and for transparency. And that's kind of at the phase that we're at. We're grateful to see providers bringing this type of thing to the table. We're grateful to see city leadership, municipal leadership beginning to take meetings with groups like us, who are encourage limiting their own their own powers and their own influence in that way. So again, we're here for transparency. We're here to make sure people are aware of what's going on and to advocate for a small government option. And I think right now where we're at, and it matches very well with where DES is in their current process seeking approval. And I think that they would even encourage more people being aware of this, more people having a say about this. And that brings me to another great point. They're having their public hearing March 18th, 5:30 to 7. And we would encourage everybody that is interested to come out. If you support, if you don't support, if you have questions, this is the time to be there. And that's our goal, again, as an advocacy group. Better Tomorrow in Tennessee is to make sure that people are aware and are attending these types of functions, so that oversight and transparency can be the name of the game.
So when I think of small government and I think of competition, I think of that kind of going together, because it seems like the less regulation you have over businesses, the more competition that may pop up. And I think we all know that if you have 3 stores selling one thing, then they have to compete with each other.
Correct.
And so they're more likely to drop the price as opposed to one company selling something, right?
Absolutely.
So I wonder how this will affect competition, because I personally think that, if you have one internet provider, then of course they can charge whatever they want, right? But if you have multiple ones, then you're going to see some competition, which naturally will lead to lower prices. So, and I'm not sure how this would all affect competition. That's why that's kind of my next question is, I would think that the big concern from your point of view, with you being a small government guy, and that being, your main focus is, the county or the electric department sort of controlling everybody's internet. So how would this maybe help provide competition so that we could stay away from a monopoly?
Exactly. No, I definitely understand that. And you're right. As a small government guy, the natural implication is that I'm going to be pro private sector, which means pro competition, because that's the foundation of the private sector. Like you just articulated, that's absolutely right. So the way that we look at it is, competition is fantastic, and we want as many players in the game as possible. But when you're playing in a league, you're a soccer coach. If you're playing in a league, there are a set of rules that are determined that every team must abide by from the get-go, right? That's what makes things, you can say the word, fair.
Right.
Absolutely. So we, again, to draw it back, we are all in favor of competition. But what we're not in favor of is having the refs play on one of the teams at the beginning of the tournament. That from the get-go removes the fairness from it, and if you use that metaphor, we'll bring it back to broadband. What we're talking about here, competition in a broadband market, what that does is it removes the competition, and it stacks the game in the favor of one player, which long term is going to drive out all of the rest of your competition, because they're not equally competing for the same people, the same access. one's playing by a different set of rules. So long term, you end up with a monopoly, just like you were afraid of having in the first place, but because the government has been able to drive out all of the other competition, and then they can control your rates on their own. I mean, at that point, you're at their mercy. So would you rather be at the mercy of the government, or would you rather be at the mercy of a private entity that has to maintain contracts that that's more responsible because they have to compete directly?
Makes sense. Here's my next question.
Sure.
So I've asked a lot of people, I've been started talking to people about this probably over the past week or two, and just, what's your thoughts on this? What's your opinion on this? And sort of the common theme is, yeah, Justin, I'm not really in favor of the government controlling the internet necessarily, but we've given the private sector 20 years to come out here to some of these places, and they've never shown up. And I'm just going to say it, there are people who are frustrated because they've called Comcast and they've said, I want to get the internet run to my house. People have got it across the street, and Comcast will quote them, thousands of dollars to run the cable to their house. And it's frustrated a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it's put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And so some people will tell me, look, I'm all for competition. I'm all for the private sector. But we've given them a long time, and they never came to us. And now the government, is trying to get involved to help us. Mm-hmm. Why would we push them away? What do you think Comcast, I know you don't work for Comcast, but sure, what do you think that they're, what we would tell people who would have that concern?
Well, and I would say, I can relate to frustrations like that. And at the end of the day, it's not my job to do PR for Comcast. Those are relationships that they have to repair themselves. And I think they can, and I hope they do. But at the end of the day, again, it does come down to an ideological discussion. And if individuals are willing, and you can bring it back to, you can look at it from another way. People sacrifice freedom for security. That's a decision. That's an ideological decision that people make, and they're not to be faulted for that. But there is a result from that, and that's kind of the way that we look at it here. If you're a fan of small government, but you're still willing to put all of your eggs in that basket, then this is an exception you're willing to make, and maybe you're ideologically not as black and white as you thought you were, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, we're here to make sure that everybody knows exactly what this is, so that they can make their decisions based on that. And for our group, our people, the people that comprise and spend their time and sweat donating efforts to Better Tomorrow in Tennessee, that's what we're here to do, is to make sure people understand the ramifications long term of growing government.
So if somebody wanted to learn more about this, or maybe just more about your organization,
sure.
Are there any resources out there? I know that they can listen to this podcast.
Yes.
Hopefully I will get, my goal is obviously to get more people to come talk to me. I mean, I've got you on here now. Mm-hmm. You've got one perspective, and I appreciate you coming on and giving your perspective.
And I'm kind of a fringe guy, so I look forward to the meat and potatoes of the folks you get on.
Yeah, I'd like to get somebody maybe from the electric board to come talk to us. I'd also like to get maybe somebody from Comcast to come talk to us. And I would also, like to get people out there who just have an opinion about it after listening to this to come and talk to us. Sure. But just from your point of view, if people, are listening to the things that you're saying, and maybe they want to learn more about that, do you have anything online that they could go to or anything?
I specifically do not. We are a 501c4. We just got started. My website is not pretty, not flashy yet. I'm still trying to. I fund much of this myself, and I'm still trying to get that underway. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be bettertomorrowintennessee.com when it's ready. But a good place to go would be to Dixon Electric. It's a website. Go take a gander at their proposal. See what they have available on that, and then also go to Comcast. Go check out they've done some press releases. I understand Comcast is the only provider in this area, right? Charter doesn't service you guys. And that might be another person to bring on as another provider that doesn't service the area. Talk about what their experiences have been in other places, or X, Y, or Z. It's up to you. I honestly don't know, but getting more voices to the table around this issue on both sides, and it doesn't even have to be a two sides. It can be a circle. We can all just kind of be, here collaboratively having conversations. So the more people you get exposed to this and have their input on it, I think the very better this will be, and the more the better served your citizens are going to be. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I got a few more questions. We've
Sure.
been going for about 30 minutes now, and I appreciate you taking the time.
I apologize for fumbling over myself. I'm doing my best.
You're fine, and that's kind of my style. Is I don't write down a whole lot of questions. I like to just kind of listen to you and see
Sure.
what I gather from it. But one thing that I know that we've kind of talked about before, like when we pre-gamed this interview, when we talked a little bit prior, you mentioned to me a pretty good example of a situation like ours that didn't really go so well, and I think that might be valuable to mention to the people before we end this thing.
Sure.
Wasn't it Chattanooga?
Well,
tell me a little bit about this project that didn't go exactly the way that they wanted.
There was a co-op, southeastern portion of the state. I will get you a link to it to give to your people if you're interested. It's a Tennessean article actually, but I will find it. Anyway, this co-op, instead of calling their provider before deciding whether or not that they wanted to expand, went ahead and expanded and bonded out and put the county in a whole lot of debt, and to go ahead and be able to provide these services. And meanwhile, one of the providers, I don't know exactly which one, came in and covered the area, and then unfortunately they had virtually nobody sign up to receive broadband services from the utility board, so from the utilities company. So now they're stuck with debt that they're not going to have revenue to pay off because one of the providers came in and offers it at a cheaper price. So again, that's very unique. That's it's in each of these boards, like I said earlier, their regions are different. Each of these utility companies serves very different shape, very different population, very different geographical region even. So again, that is unique, and I don't expect any horror stories of anything like that if this type of expansion goes through. But I will say that there are long-term ramifications of growing your government, and you might sneak up on your grandkids. But if you're not careful about making that decision, as a government, as a people, or as a leadership, then you're responsible for the fallout. So just here to make sure people understand what's going on, how it's going on, and how they can get involved, and what it all does mean to them and to the community.
So how do you think they could have done that differently in Chattanooga through a private-public partnership to maybe prevent that?
It sounds to me like all they would have had to done is make a phone call to a provider and say, hey, we're thinking about trying to expand our services to do XYZ, and it sounds like to me all a provider would have had to say was, oh wait, we've already budgeted for that, we're going to be in there, and we're going to make sure those people are covered already, next question. But it doesn't look like that happened, and I don't want to get in the weeds pointing fingers, but at the same time, communication is very, very important, and it looks like to me in that particular instance, healthy communication between the board, the utility service, the county and municipal leadership and their providers would have been very helpful. And I hope that that's what we're striving for here in Dixon County, and in Dixon City, and with the Dixon Electrical expansion. So.
Well, this has been a nice little overview.
Thank you.
And if you will send me some links to some of the stuff we've been talking about, we can maybe just kind of get the people the information that way, because I do want people to be able to go kind of read for themselves and look things up. Like I said at the beginning, I don't know a ton about this. This is mainly a project that I'm sort of taking on almost kind of like for fun, I guess you could say, in a weird kind of way, but I worry about the community, and I like to just kind of know what's going on, and I know other people do too, and so just kind of sitting down and talking about this, I think, has been great. So there's other ways, and you kind of mentioned it already in the show here.
And let me be clear, I'm not a broadband scientist, so I am here for ideological discussions about small government.
Sure.
So I appreciate you're talking with me and letting that be clear as my focus, because I really do just want transparency and to keep government small if possible, and that's what our group is here for. So thank you for letting that light shine.
Well, I just appreciate you being willing to talk. Sure. I mean, my thing is if you're not doing anything bad, then you should be, open to questions about things. And so,
courage of your convictions.
The fact that you're here tells me a lot, that you're willing to talk about it and willing to give your side. I hope others will be just as willing to be transparent, so that we can get kind of all the sides here. But and you mentioned it earlier in the show, but there's a meeting taking place that the public can get involved in. Would you kind of go over that again for the folks that are hearing this and they're like, I just want to ask some more questions, Justin. Where's this meeting taking place? How can I get involved?
Absolutely. Well, it's the public hearing that's required by Dixon Electric to expand their services, and when the public hearing is going to be March 18th from 5:30 to 7, and this is an opportunity for anybody within the proposed expansion district. So not just Dixon City. This is if you live all the way up into Cheatham, if you're on the map of who they propose to bring services to, please come out, give your opinion, whether it be good, in support of or against, or if you just have questions, come on down to City Hall in Dixon.
And I think that people are going to listen to this, and they're probably going to have some more questions and may have some opinions. So I think it would be great for us just to get this out and just kind of see kind of what happens, and then if you would be willing to, and like to have you come back down at some point.
Always happy to see you, Justin. But I look forward to hearing your interviews with some of the leadership and hopefully some of the providers and some of the utilities board members as well. This is hopefully just a really great start for you.
Yes, I hope so too. I like I said, I really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully that'll, I don't want to say put pressure on other people to do it, but it'll encourage, it'll make them realize, hey, Justin's not really trying to, I'm not going to sit here and ask you gotcha questions or debate you. I just want to talk to you. I mean, I'm a radio host. That's all I know how to do, really. I just want to ask questions and get some information out of you. And I think you've been very kind to come down here today and do this with me. I appreciate it very much.
Appreciate your hospitality.
So we'll go ahead and wrap things up here today. And Dakota, I just appreciate you coming out. And we'll play this interview on social media. I'll put it on YouTube. We'll get it out there, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes. And hopefully we will continue this a little bit later. But again, thank you so much for coming out. We just want to get the information out there. Again, everybody listening, I don't have an opinion on this at all. Just because I had Dakota on first doesn't mean that I 100% agree or disagree or anything like that. I found a guy that was transparent, who has an opinion, who is fighting for something he believes in, and I just wanted to talk to you and give the people of Dixon County, who maybe don't run into you like I have, a chance just to hear what you have to say. And so, like I said, I really appreciate this, and we'll see where it goes from here. But thank you again, and we'll go ahead and close out here on the Justin Spurlock Show. Dakota Gordon has been kind enough to come down here today, and real quick on the way out, just tell them what was the name of your organization one more time?
Better Tomorrow in Tennessee, and we're going to have some great content coming up soon, chatting about broadband.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close out. Hope everybody has a good day.